Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. And this watch may be the most conservative version of the Patek Philippe Nautilus Chronograph. You're looking at the 2010 debut, 5980/1A-014. Of course, the original 2006 version of the watch had a blue dial. There would later be a silver-white dial, a more saturated blue that would go with precious metal and two-tone variants. But through all the variants, dials, and case metals, I have to say that this version is the most understated, and probably for those who would prefer to enjoy their watch without the participation of strangers. So the watch is 40.8 millimeters in diameter and measure it thinner than you would think, at 12.5 millimeters thick. It is 45.5 from lug to lug for just measuring the case. A more representative and honest measurement across the wrist would be one end link to its opposite number, and on that account, it's 51.1 millimeters. Mass is a metric, though it's not a dimension. And there you can see, if we subtract the tag, it's about 154.43. So it's a weighty watch, despite not being physically large. I'd say it wears similar to a solid end link modern-day 40mm Daytona on a bracelet. Comfortable. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it's not long across the wrist. Let me try to pull it in a way that's representative here. I really believe you could wear this on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. My 16 centimeter wrist has no problem with it whatsoever. And this would be a more natural comparison if the bracelet were sized for me, but you're just going to have to take my word that this works well on a 14 centimeter wrist. Now, it will easily fit underneath the cuff, being fairly thin and sloped in profile. That is not a concern. We have a screw-down crown here, and even though we do have a little pusher for changing the date and triggers for the chronograph, it is still 120 meters, just like a standard 5711 would be. Taking a quick look at the lume shot, it's pretty good. You lose the bottom of the dial, but it's fairly easy to read in any event. The watch features exquisite decoration. You can see the many different case components and little details like these polished bevels. You see the same bevels along the shoulder of the links. The many details and distinctions that make a Nautilus legitimately more expensive to produce than something like an Aquanaut. Don't worry, we'll get that little retaining pin right there. And so you can see one of the reasons why the Nautilus has always been the big brother to the Aquanaut is just there's a lot more to building and decorating it. We have a little piece of dust there rolling down the bracelet. Now, the bracelet is very comfortable. I'd say the bracelet on this is comparable in feel to something like a 5726 more than a 5712 or a 5711. It's not quite Royal Oak offshore, but it's getting there. Maybe it's like a Royal Oak 15500 in solidity. Taking a look at the clasp, you can see it is a double fold. We've got a little set of spring-loaded ceramic pin snaps, so over time, this little clamshell can't wear down the pin snaps and diminish their security. We have a little Calatrava cross on the buckle. That is the symbol of the company. You'll find it again on the crown and then again on the case back. Rolling around to the watch, you can see that the dial features a bit of a gradient fade. It's more of a silver gray at the center and more of a silver black or anthracite at the edge. White gold hands and indices, so they'll never tarnish or oxidize. We've got a sort of bullseye mono counter down at the base of the dial to keep everything clean and balanced, so you have that bilateral symmetry with the exception of the date window. So you have your chronograph hours and chronograph minutes. Now, this is a flyback chronograph, which means reset and restart without first stopping. Great for timing events that occur in rapid succession. You can see outer bezel, inner bezel, crystal, and dial all have the same rounded polygonal form. One of the reasons why I've often considered the Nautilus to be Gerald Genta's more refined take on the concept he first posited with the Royal Oak. Remember, the Royal Oak has that rounded octagonal bezel, but then the inner bezel, the crystal, and the dial, they're all round. Here, everything is symmetrical from the inside to the outside and the outside to the inside. There is a date. It is actuated using this little pusher, and that's a relic of this movement being based on the 5960's annual calendar system, which is regulated using a pusher adjuster system. Now, this does not have hacking, but if you notice, it also doesn't have any kind of running second. This is a vertical clutch chronograph, which means you can leave the chronograph running full-time with no hazard to the watch. So if you just like to have running seconds so it's not a dead dial, you can do that. and that's because of the vertical clutch. You can also see that the vertical clutch engages without any jump, stagger, or snap forward. That's one of the characteristics of a vertical clutch, which, unlike a lateral clutch, has no seams or meshing of gear teeth. Now, the other thing, too, is if you want to use this as your running second and just ignore the chronograph, you can use the reset as your zero reset system, effectively hacking and synchronizing to the second. So that's a hacking hack, if you will. Out back, we have a fairly large movement. It's known as the 28-520. And a couple things to note. It's unidirectional winding with ceramic ball bearings, those two features making for greater efficiency than bidirectional winding, and steel bearings. 4 hertz beat rate, 35 joules. See, by this point, we've got a chronometer style 5-position adjustment. So 5-position adjusted, free sprung gyromax style balance. And then, although it's not super easy to see, it has a silicon Spiromax hairspring, so it's highly anti-magnetic. It's got the column wheel, it's got the vertical clutch, and actually you can see what Patek calls a column wheel here. I'm not quite sure I would describe that as a column wheel. That's more of a flattened rotary cam. It turns and it rotates like a column wheel, but it doesn't have the crenellated towers of a column wheel. It has the lobes of a cam. So just an interesting lesson in how sometimes the mechanical engineering of Swiss watches doesn't fall neatly into categories. This is described as a column wheel, and it's definitely a wheel, but it has no columns. The movement is anti-magnetic, highly accurate, quite durable due to the free-sprung architecture. It's designed for sports watches and has approximately a 55-hour power reserve when fully wound. So it's nicely decorated too, although it's not completely hand-finished. It features that judicial blend of hand finishing and machine finishing that characterizes modern-day Patek Philippe, and if we're fair, Holy Trinity, Lange, Jaeger-LeCoultre, FP Journe, and quite a few others decorative standards. We have engine turning, we have satination on the steel chronograph parts, we have circular stripes, Côte de Genève, we have snailing on the outer edge of the rotor, all screw heads are polished, we have beveling on the edge of the bridges, but also in all of the jewel sinks. Satination on wheels, and then you can see that large perlage or engine turning on the base plate. It looks good. It looks price appropriate. 120 meters water resistant really is the do-it-all watch. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.